Good people, welcome to Mose Knows. I am your host, Mose. Back at it again. It's that time of year again. It was around this time of year, 2021, where I started Mose Knows. I started this YouTube channel talking about football, my passion, my love for football. It started around this time. Started in February after the Super Bowl, getting into the NFL draft, getting into free agency, all of the off-season work that all 32 NFL teams put in to build their rosters for the upcoming season. Well, we're back at it again. This is the first mock draft 1.0 of the 2022 NFL offseason. We're going to jump right in. Done a little bit of homework, did a little bit of research. We might have an idea of what these teams are going to do. Again, the draft is a crapshoot. You really never know what's going to happen. We've got a bunch of teams with new head coaches installing new philosophies and new player personnel packages. So the draft can go any which way, but we're going to take a look. This is version 1.0. There will be many different versions. We'll do a version post-combine. We'll do post-pro day versions. We'll have to do a version after free agency kicks off and we see where some of the NFL veterans, they may be going to new places. So a team who may have a draft need right now, today, during this 1.0 version of the mock draft, may not have that need because they fill that need with a veteran free agent. So there will be many, many different versions of this mock draft, this first round mock draft. So let's jump right in to this one that we have here. We're going to select all teams. We're going to do the first round, make it easy, normal. Don't need to do anything else because we're handling that. And let's get it started, man. The Jacksonville Jaguars, second year in a row, they have the number one overall pick. I don't know if that's a good thing to have number one overall pick 2 years in a row, but that may, tell you a lot about this organization. But I think this organization may be headed in the right direction. I think they have their quarterback of the future. We know they have their quarterback of the future in Trevor Lawrence. You got to get some more pieces around him. I think he has a good coach in Doug Peterson that'll be able to do that. And I think you first have to start by protecting him. This is a no-brainer. We're going to go Evan Neal, offensive tackle out of Alabama, number one overall. The Detroit Lions are on the clock. Let's see. They have needs at edge, safety, quarterback, wide receiver, linebacker. I think they're gonna go edge here. I do see the name Aiden Hutchinson here, but I'm partial to Kayvon Thibodeaux. I think Kayvon is a little bit more explosive off the edge. I think he has a little bit more bend, a little bit more agility, and I think he has a better pass rush package. Some people may argue that, but I think the ceiling for Kayvon Thibodeaux is a little bit higher. So I'm going to go Kayvon Thibodeaux at number 2 to the Detroit Lions. At number 3, the Houston Texans also need an edge rusher. They can go corner, they can go safety, but I feel like with Detroit taking Kayvon Thibodeaux, that leaves Aiden Hutchinson on the board for them to go get. It's big shoes to fill because you would think, okay, they're drafting Aiden Hutchinson. More than likely, he is the J.J. Watt replacement. I don't think you can put those expectations on a young kid like Aiden Hutchinson. Just allow him to come in and be himself. But they do need to affect the passer on that defense. So I think they go Aiden Hutchinson at 3. The Jets at 4 are a unique situation. Their needs are offensive tackle, edge rusher, safety, corner, tight end, linebacker. The list goes on and on. I think in Robert Saleh's second offseason with this Jets team, I think he starts to focus more on his bread and butter, and that's on the defensive side of the ball. I think last year you take care of the offense. You draft a kid like Zach Wilson. You draft Elijah Vera Tucker and slide him in at left guard next to Mekhi Becton. Something in my eye there. And then later rounds, you get a wide receiver like Elijah Moore, who is going to be dynamic for years to come. This year, I think you focus on the offensive side of the ball. So it looks like our 2 top edge rushers are off the board. But this player that's here is an absolute dynamic weapon. And if you look at Robert Saleh and the coaching tree that he's come from, he's under that Seattle branch. He was under Quinn and under Gus Bradley in Jacksonville when he was a linebacker coach there. So he understands that type of Legion of Boom defense, right? And I think he has a player on the board available to him at number 4 that's dynamic, and that's safety Kyle Hamilton out of Notre Dame. Kid is 6'4", 220, plays all over the field. His range is amazing. You can drop him in the box. He can cover tight ends. He can cover backs out of the backfield. You could put him on wide receivers in the slot if you wanted to. He can play the deep third. He can play the deep middle. He is going to be the quarterback of Robert Saleh's defense for the next 5 to 10 years. I think that's an amazing pickup if Robert Saleh can get his hands on that kid at number 4. The New York Giants are up in this draft. They have pick 5, and they also have pick 7. So they can be a little bit lenient with this number 5 pick and maybe go somewhere that they wouldn't go. Their needs are offensive tackle, edge rusher, linebacker, wide receiver, quarterback, blah, 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 blah. Edge rusher could be an option, but you did take Azeez Ojulari last year, so I don't think you need to do back-to-back edge guys. Offensive tackle, I think the biggest thing that you need to do with this team is protect Daniel Jones and make sure that you're able to open up holes for Saquon Barkley, and that's if he even returns. He may be traded. You never know. But I think you have to shore up that offensive line, so I'm going to go Ikem Ekwonu, offensive tackle out of North Carolina State, for the Giants at 5. At 6, the Carolina Panthers are on the board. They also have a need at offensive tackle. They have a need at quarterback, but I don't think there is a quarterback worthy of a top 10 selection in this year's draft. Interior offensive line is a need. Interior defensive line is a need, but that's later on down the draft. I think they too also need to shore up that offensive line. And even though the Giants have 5 and 7, and they could be a little bit more risky with 5, I think if they don't go Ikem Ekwonu at 5 and allow the Panthers to take him at 6, then you're banking on Charlie Cross being solid enough to make your team. If you don't like Charlie Cross, or if you don't think Charlie Cross is as good as Ikem Ekwonu, then I think at that number 5 pick, you have to take Ekwonu, right? And then that allows the Panthers to take Charles Cross, offensive tackle out of Mississippi State. And now the Giants are back on the clock at number 7. And edge rusher. Now, if you want to go edge here, I don't see a problem with them going edge rusher here. Now, this team is traditionally a 3-4. I know Brian Daboll is coming over as the new head coach. And I don't know if his new defensive coordinator is going to want to change that and maybe not run a 3-4, maybe switch over to a 4-3. That is yet to be seen. They may not be able to do that immediately with the personnel that they have, so they may have to stick with that 3-4. If we go edge, there are a bunch of options here. I love Jermaine Johnson out of Florida State. I love David Ojoba out of Michigan. Also, there is George Karlaftis out of Purdue. I think if I'm going 3-4, I think George Karlaftis is a better fit just because of his size at 6'4", 275. But you can't go wrong really with Jermaine Johnson either. 6'5", 265. He may be able to stand to put on a few more pounds, but I don't think you want him to lose his explosiveness off the edge and his ability to move and bend and be agile. This one is kind of tough. In my research in preparing for this mock, I was kind of flip-flopping Jermaine Johnson or Karlaftis. I think if this team sticks in a 3-4, I think Karlaftis may be a better fit from a scheme perspective. So I'm going to go George Karlaftis at number 7 to the Giants. Number 8, the Atlanta Falcons are here. They have a need at offensive tackle. Do they take a Trevor Penning at number 8 overall? It is possible. He's listed as a top 15 prospect. So to see him go at number 8, that isn't that far-fetched. I think if they do want offensive tackle and they do want Trevor Penning, I see them likely trading down. So moving out of the 8th overall pick, maybe anywhere between 11 and 14, 11 and 15, somewhere in that range. If they want Trevor Penning, I think the edge rushers on the board who are still left, I think those names are too rich for them to pass up. They can either go Jermaine Johnson or David Ojabo. I think at this particular selection with the defense that they run, I think Jermaine Johnson is a really, really good fit. So I'm going to go Jermaine Johnson at number 8 to the Atlanta Falcons. And then the Broncos at number 9. Again, quarterback is a need for them as well. But again, no quarterbacks are worth a top 10 pick in this year's draft, just in my opinion. So then if you go to their next needs, edge and corner, I don't know if that's necessarily a need. You have Patrick Surtain II. You have Ronald Darby. They may be moving on from Kyle Fuller, but don't forget they still have Michael Ojemudia. And Michael Ojemudia in his rookie season had a phenomenal year. I think he stepped in as a rookie and played really, really well. 2021, he had some nagging injuries that kept him off the field and not being able to play. And then you look at, Patrick Surtain coming in and having an amazing rookie year. Ronald Darby coming over from Washington and playing really, really well. And then the veteran Kyle Fuller. So he just had too many guys in front of him. But I don't know if cornerback is necessarily a need. So I'm going to go edge rusher here as well. And I think a guy like David Ojabo from Michigan can plug right in on the opposite side of Bradley Chubb, whether you need him to put his hand in the dirt or stand up in that 3-4 they run. They possibly may be changing defenses as well, depending on who new head coach Nathaniel Hackett decides to bring in as his defensive coordinator. But right now, edge is a need, and I'm going to go David Ojabo out of Michigan to the Broncos. At 10, Robert Saleh and the Jets are back on the clock. And I think if the draft falls this way, I think his 2 top 10 picks, he is absolutely elated. They got the safety that they needed. Edge is a need, tackle is a need, but I think they need to shore up that secondary. And if he's able to get the top corner in the draft at pick 10, Robert Saleh is out here winning. I think they go Derek Stingley Jr. out of LSU at 10 for the Jets. Now, Washington Commanders. That still feels weird to say, but they are the Washington Commanders. A quarterback is a need. Do they take a quarterback at 11 because it's not a top 10 pick? I still think 11 is too rich for any of the quarterbacks in this draft class. Then we have a wide receiver, corner, interior offensive line. Safety is a need. There's a lot of different options here. I think they go corner. I think they help shore up that defense. They are getting Chase Young back from a torn ACL. I did expect this Washington football team defense to be and play much better than they had in the 2021 NFL season. Hopefully they can get back to that, and I think you can by adding some pieces to your secondary. I think they go Sauce Gardner out of Cincinnati at 11. At number 12, we have the Minnesota Vikings on the clock. Safeties in need, interior defensive line, corner, quarterback. I don't think that's necessary either. Wide receiver, don't agree. Linebacker, don't agree. Yeah, I don't agree with a lot of these. But I like the interior defensive line. I'm going to go there. I do think they need to bolster that. A couple names on the board right now. Jordan Davis, interior defensive lineman from Georgia. He kind of slides more into a 3-4 scheme. He's probably going to be a nose tackle anchoring at middle, similar to like a Kenny Clark. I think just Jordan Davis is much bigger than Kenny Clark. Jordan Davis is 6'6", 340. I think Kenny Clark maybe 6'2" or 6'3". Jordan Davis is just a massive human being. But I think he anchors a defensive line that is more built for a 3-4. And we know the Vikings tend to run more 4-3. So I don't agree with his slotting here on this particular big board. But I think DeMarvin Leal, one of the highest rated defensive tackles in this year's defensive tackle draft class, would be a perfect fit for that Vikings defensive line. So I'm going to go DeMarvin Leal here at 12 for the Minnesota Vikings. The Browns also say that they can use an interior defensive lineman. Linebacker is a need, quarterback, which is, a little strange there. They have Baker Mayfield, but are they sold on Baker? Edge rusher, wide receiver, offensive tackle. I think the defense is okay. I think the defense needs a little bit more time to gel, but I think the defense is all right. If they're able to bring back Jadeveon Clowney, they have Myles Garrett, they have other pieces along the defense. I think the secondary needs a little bit more time to mature. But I think the defense is fine. I think you do need to focus a little bit more on the offense. Offensive line is in a good position. You have Baker Mayfield. Your running backs are solid. You got some athletic tight ends. I think you can stand to add some more help in that wide receiver core. I don't think, as much as I love Jarvis Landry, I don't think Juice is a premier number one wide receiver in the league at this time or at this point in his career. I think he can help you a lot in the slot as that, wily old veteran who gets open. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones probably slides more into that number one wide receiver role for this team. But then I think you also need somebody else outside of those two who can get the ball in his hands and make something happen in space. And that's Treylon Burks. So I have the Browns going wide receiver Treylon Burks at 13. The Ravens are on the clock here at 14. Interior defensive line is a need. Edge is a need. Cornerback is a need. I think they have solid corners. I think they're both coming back off of injuries. We'll have to see how they're able to produce and perform. Marlon Humphrey, I can't remember what his injury was, but I know he had a couple nagging ones. Of course, Marcus Peters had the torn ACL. So I think defensively, they want to make sure that they're stout up front. And if interior defensive line is a need in the 3-4 that Baltimore plays, I think the massive human being like Jordan Davis would find a very, very nice home in Baltimore. So I'm going Jordan Davis to the Ravens at 14. Eagles. Y'all know I can't stand the Eagles. I can't stand the Eagles. I can't stand the Eagles fans. But this is an unbiased mock draft, so I'm going to help them out as best as they can. I think last year around this time, especially after all the trades the Eagles made, they had two options. They went into the season seeing what Jalen Hurts is able to give them. If they didn't like what they saw from Jalen Hurts, if he wasn't good at all, then I think you can package two of these picks. They have 15, they have 16, they have 19. I think you can package two of these picks, move up in this draft if you need to get a quarterback. The quarterback draft class is not very good. And I think the Eagles are pretty pleased with what they got from Jalen Hurts. I mean, he was able to get them into the playoffs. Had it not been for some nagging injuries across the offensive line and on the defense, maybe this Eagles team would have been a little bit better. I think another year in this system, in this scheme, I think the Eagles can be a better football team. They're pretty much in an easy division. Dallas is always up in the air, and so. The Giants are probably the bottom barrel, and we don't know what we're going to get from Washington, especially if we don't know what their quarterback situation is going to be. So I think the needs for this Eagles team are edge rusher, corner, interior offensive line, safety, linebacker, quarterback. There's an edge rusher here, but I don't think they go edge rusher. I think that front seven from a defensive line, outside linebacker, edge rusher standpoint, I think is pretty good. The areas I want to focus on for this Eagles team are corner, interior offensive line, and linebacker. Now watch what I do for it. So at 15, one of the top rated corners is still here. Best of who's available, Andrew Booth Jr. from Clemson. I think that's a no-brainer. You take him right there. Now, interior offensive line and linebacker is a need. Now, I think interior offensive line, you have two names, Tyler Linderbaum and Kenyon Green. Last year, I think they took Creed Humphrey. Did they take Creed, or was that? the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs took Creed Humphrey. The Eagles took, oh my goodness. The Eagles took an interior lineman last year who played a little bit at guard, but I think he can slide to center. Even if he doesn't slide to center just yet, and they still have Jason Kelce, I don't think they take Tyler Linderbaum here. Unless Jason Kelce is not coming back, whether they don't bring him back or he retires, then I think they take Tyler Linderbaum. But I think they go Kenyon Green because Brandon Brooks has retired. So they want to make sure that they can keep that offensive line stout. So I think they go Kenyon Green at 16. And now they've taken care of corner and interior offensive line. And we'll see them again back at number 19. Number 17, the Los Angeles Chargers are on the clock. Offensive tackle, edge, corner, interior defensive line are their top 4 needs. Based on what we saw here, I think this Chargers team may look to bolster the defensive side of the ball. I think their defense was a little lackluster and not as effective and efficient as they anticipated it being. But I think you still need to be able to protect your young investment in Justin Herbert. You did it last year by drafting Rashawn Slater, who came in and had an absolute monster year as a rookie at the left tackle position in the NFL. Now I think you bolster that right side, and now you have bookend tackles on your offensive line to protect Justin Herbert for the next 10 plus years. Trevor Penning had an absolutely monster Senior Bowl week, one of the nastiest offensive line prospects in this draft. I think you have nasty and athletic on the left side. They add Trevor Penning, you get nasty and powerful on the right side, and then you continue to protect Justin Herbert and open up holes for that running game. Saints are on the clock, and then this one could be a little tricky. I think this is where we could have, some sauce happening. Saints are on the clock. Wide receiver, offensive tackle, quarterback is a need. This team is going through some things. If you don't follow me on Instagram, give me a follow on Instagram. What.mose.knows over on Instagram. Yesterday, I posted a post of the top 5 teams who got money in the bank. I mean, they got money to spend. So when free agents start coming out, if they want a guy, they can go and give him the bag if they wanted to. Today, I will be posting a post on my Instagram showing the bottom 5 teams. I mean, these teams, they in the hole, and they in the hole by a lot. The Saints are the worst among that group. If you want to know what that number is, give me a follow over on Instagram and check that post out today. So they're going to need to make a lot of their draft picks. Now, I envision, because of that, they probably trade out of this number 18 pick. I think here is where you can start to see a quarterback come off the board. The Saints themselves can take a quarterback right here. Do they trust Jameis Winston coming off an ACL injury? Is that the quarterback that they want to put all of their eggs into that basket? The Pittsburgh Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger has retired. Yes, they have Mason Rudolph and Dwayne Haskins, but do they trust those guys to be a full-time starter in the NFL? Long-term, absolutely not. So they could draft a young guy who they develop behind those two and let those two take all the lumps while they get the young guy ready. After that, there's a string of teams that don't need a quarterback. You could say maybe the Buccaneers are looking at a quarterback with the retirement of Tom Brady. They did draft Kyle Trask last year. I don't think they'll draft another quarterback and have a second year and a first year quarterback battling it out, a rookie and a second year guy going back and forth for their number one job when they're a team that is a playoff caliber win now team. But maybe some of these earlier teams who might be looking to add a quarterback, maybe the Denver Broncos, the Atlanta Falcons, New York Giants, Carolina Panthers, maybe they package some other late round picks to move up to 18 to get a guy like one. So here's where I can see that happening. Unfortunately, with this mock draft, this is our first one, volume 1.0. We're just going straight through, no trades other than the ones that have already been made. So I think the Saints stay here. And I do like them taking a quarterback of the future here. And that's going to be quarterback Kenny Pickett out of Pittsburgh. Eagles are on the clock. We took care of corner. We took care of interior O-line. I think this team needs a linebacker. This team does not have very good linebackers. I'm on the East Coast. I live in Jersey. I got a lot of Eagles fans in my family. A lot of Eagles fans that are friends of mine hear about it all the time. I see it on paper. I see it on tape. I see it when I'm watching the games. I think they need to be a little bit more dynamic in all three levels of the defense. So I'm going to give them Devin Lloyd out of Utah. Absolute stud. I think that's a great pick for the Eagles at number 19. Steelers are on the clock. Again, quarterback is their need. So do they move up with the Chargers and jump ahead of the Saints to make sure they get their guy in Pickett, keep him in Pittsburgh? That could be an option. Maybe we might see that in another iteration of the round one mock draft. The Steelers are on the clock here. Quarterback, interior offensive line, offensive tackle, interior defensive line. Man, it's a lot of different places that we can go with this pick. Cornerback is an option. Do we need a center in Pittsburgh? I don't believe so. That is a possibility. Could we go Zion Johnson in Pittsburgh? Maybe we need to beef up the guard situation. Could we go corner? A guy like Trent McDuffie's here. Joe Hayden is getting up there in age. So do we want to get younger on that side of the ball? We lost Mike Hilton to the Bengals. Cameron Sutton is decent, but do we want to upgrade that position? I mean, for me, I think it is between a Trent McDuffie and a Zion Johnson. I think what's more important, do you want to beef up that defense because you know the offense may not be as potent without Ben Roethlisberger? Or do you want to shore up that offensive line because, you have the weapons on the outside? You have a Deontay Johnson, a James Washington, a Chase Claypool, a Pat Freiermuth. You got the running back in Najee Harris. Do you want to shore up the offensive line to make sure that you can get those guys the ball in space and open up holes? I think you do. I think offense is more important than defense. Offensive line in this scenario is more important than defense. I think I'm going to go Zion Johnson, offensive guard, to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Help beef up that offensive line there. Patriots are on the clock. Corner, linebacker, safety, wide receiver. They could be losing J.C. Jackson in free agency. Do they find a young guy to replace him with? Somebody like a Trent McDuffie? Do they go linebacker and get a Nakobe Dean? I think they don't have Stephon Gilmore anymore. I think they don't have I don't think they bring back J.C. Jackson. So I think you have to supplement that position because you lost your two top guys. I'm going to go Trent McDuffie, cornerback out of Washington, to the New England Patriots. And at 22, we have the Las Vegas Raiders. Interior defensive line, interior offensive line, cornerback, wide receiver. I think if this offensive lineman falls to them at 22, I don't think they hesitate. They moved on from center Rodney Hudson, who was a perennial Pro Bowler, All-Pro for this Raiders offensive line for many, many years. He moved on to the Arizona Cardinals, and now I think they find a solid replacement for him. Give me Tyler Linderbaum to the Las Vegas Raiders at 22. And then the Cardinals are on the clock at 23. Cornerback, edge rusher, running back, tight end. I think there's a lot of area for this team to grow and get better. Cornerback is the main need because outside of Byron Murphy, their cornerbacks are not that good. Edge rusher is also another really, really big need because they could be losing Chandler Jones. But I think even if they lose Chandler Jones, they have J.J. Watt. They have, what's the guy who terrorizes my 49ers? I forget his name. Outside linebacker. Is it? I forget his name. But he kills us every time we play him. So I think they have enough pieces there, and I think they can attack edge later on in the draft. I think they have to go corner here in this first round. I'm going to give them Roger McCreary, corner out of Auburn. They have to beef up that secondary, especially at that corner spot. Dallas Cowboys are on the clock. Edge, safety, interior defensive line, top 3 needs. They could go edge. I think the Dallas Cowboys are also, check me out on Instagram, they are also in that bottom 5 of teams with the worst cap situations. They are in the hole by a lot of money. Like, if you give me the money that the Dallas Cowboys are in the hole, bro, I'd be straight for a long time. A long, long time. I could pay all my bills off. I pay my house off, pay my cars off, get new cars, put money away in savings for my kids' college funds. Y'all know I got 4 of them now. And then I still have money left, though. I take care of my mama, take care of my wife's mama, put some money in some stocks, some investments, buy some, rental properties, have some. Listen, you give me the money the Dallas Cowboys is in the negative, I'll be straight. I'll be straight for a long time. And then look, I could quit my job because I work a regular job. I can quit my job and I can focus on Mose Knows and Nitty Gritty Niners and all my content creation full time because I got money in the bank. Just listen. I'm not asking for $1 billion. Just give me the money that Dallas is in the hole. I'll be straight. I'll be straight. So they may not be able to bring back a DeMarcus Lawrence because of the cap situation that they're in. But knowing their defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn, knowing what he likes and what he's used to, I could see them going safety here. And this may be a homer pick for me, but I really, really love this kid. Watching his development as a player, watching his tape, watching his film, knowing his story, I think Dan Quinn is going to fall in love with this kid. And I think he immediately brings swagger, a toughness, a grit to a defense that Dan Quinn is looking for. And I'm going to go Jaquan Brisker, safety out of Penn State, at 24 to the Dallas Cowboys. At 25, the Buffalo Bills. Interior defensive line, a need. Edge, need. Cornerback, a need. I think this team loves defense. I think this team likes to focus on building up the defense. I think there are areas on the offense that they can look to bolster. I think running back is a good one. I think interior offensive line, which is a need, 2 top needs here, are good ones. I don't understand why the Bills have quarterback as a need unless they're talking about backup, but I think they're okay with Mitch Trubisky behind Josh Allen unless Trubisky decides to move on. So I want to focus on the top 3. Last year, I thought the Bills had one of the top defensive line rotations. I mean, those guys, that team is 8 or 9 deep. So I don't know if I agree with the interior. Maybe on the edge, you can get a little bit more production with the edge, depending on what happens with Jerry Hughes. Jerry Hughes is like 49. He's been playing for a long time. No, he's not really 49, but he is one of the older statesmen of the team. So whether he decides to retire or they decide to move on from him, that could be an option. But if Trayvon Walker from Georgia is still here, I think they go get him, bring him in the fold, and just he's another body in a deep defensive rotation that loves to get after the quarterback and create turnovers. So I'm gonna go Trayvon Walker from Georgia for the Buffalo Bills. At 26, the Tennessee Titans have needs at linebacker, tight end, corner, offensive tackle, wide receiver. A few needs across this team here. So where do we want to go? Tight end, possibly. I don't know if Anthony Ferkser is the ideal target long term. Cornerback, they did draft my man from Virginia Tech last year. Injuries were concerned for him. He wasn't able to go this season, but maybe he's able to come back this season in 2022 and be able to show the potential that, he had before some of the injuries that he had. I think wide receiver could be a good option here in the late first round. Yes, they have Julio Jones. Yes, they have A.J. Brown. But I think if you want to add a guy into the slot, somebody like a Jameson Williams to help, stretch the field, I think that would also be a good option. But they have linebacker as their top need, and there's a really, really good linebacker still on the board here. I think you can add him to this defense. Coach Vrabel, who is a linebacker himself, loves defense and loves bolstering that side of the ball. I think they have their edge rushers, but I think you can help bolster that middle of that 3-4 with a young guy like Nakobe Dean. So I'm going to take Nakobe Dean from Georgia. So that's back-to-back Georgia defenders at 25 and 26. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are on the clock. Wide receiver, offensive tackle. I don't agree with offensive tackle. I don't agree with corner. Quarterback is a need, but again, do they take a quarterback in the first round and run out Kyle Trask and their rookie in a quarterback competition? I don't think so. I don't agree with running back or safety either, unless these needs are all about depth. I do think that wide receiver could be a focus here, just for the simple fact that I don't think that this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team is going to be able to bring back Chris Godwin. So I think you get another young guy who can work the intermediate, work the underneath routes. And I think they go get Garrett Wilson, wide receiver out of Ohio State, and pair him with Mike Evans. The Green Bay Packers, this is an interesting draft pick for them as well. They could go edge. The top edge defender left is Cameron Thomas. There could be a few other guys. Let's take a look. Cameron Thomas, Logan Hall, Kingsley Enagbare. But I think the 28th pick is too rich for most of these guys here. Maybe not Cam Thomas, but most of these guys here. This is going to be interesting for the Green Bay Packers and what happens with Aaron Rodgers. Does he come back to Green Bay? If he comes back, does he bring back Davante Adams? And I think he's been asking for this every single year. Every year he's been asking for this. Get me another receiver. And I don't think it's disrespect or discrediting the guys that they have, but I think he needs somebody that is going to be able to step up a little bit more than what the guys on the roster have already been doing. There were a lot of receivers that he won. Rashad Bateman, Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk, CeeDee Lamb. There were a lot of guys that were on the board that the Packers were well within their right to be able to go get, and they just didn't make it happen. But I think this is the year he finally gets a guy who allows that offense to be so much more dynamic. If you're able to bring back Davante Adams, he's your premier number one wide receiver who does it all. You have Allen Lazard, who's your big body possession type of receiver, and then I think you get your burner who can stretch the field and make defense play honest. You get you a Jameson Williams in the fold with Green Bay, and I think that makes Aaron Rodgers a very, very happy man. The Miami Dolphins are on the clock. Their top need is wide receiver. And you could be thinking, why? They drafted Jalen Waddle. He had an excellent year, absolutely. But Jalen Waddle was supposed to come in and have a great year alongside Devontae Parker and Will Fuller, both guys who had nagging injuries throughout the season and weren't able to play a full season. So I think giving Tua more weapons is paramount, especially if you cannot rely on two of the three. That's 66%. So I think you need to add some wide receiver help for him. And I think you have your speed guy in Jalen Waddle who can stretch the field, who can get the ball in his hands and make some dynamic things happen. But I think you replace the big body threat that Devontae Parker adds with the big body of Drake London, wide receiver from USC. You get him in the fold, let him be your big body possession wide receiver, go up and get it, and then you have Jalen Waddle stretching the field. I think this Miami Dolphins team on offense could be dangerous with the mind of new head coach Mike McDaniel. 3 more picks left. We have the Kansas City Chiefs here. Listen, wide receivers a need. I don't agree with. Edge, that could possibly help out, but they have Frank Clark. If they keep, who do they get from the Chargers? Y'all know who I'm talking about. If they keep him as well, they should be fine. Melvin Ingram. If they keep Melvin Ingram, they got Frank Clark, they should be fine as far as edge rushers. Maybe you get a young guy in the later rounds to like help in a rotation and give those older guys a little bit of a spell. But I think you have to go safety here. You got Juan Thornhill. That's great. You don't know what's happening with Tyrann Mathieu. You may not be able to bring him back, and you cannot put Daniel Sorensen out there anymore. You can't do it. So for that reason, I'm going Daxton Hill, safety from Michigan, because y'all cannot continue to keep playing Daniel Sorensen. He has to go. All right, at 31, Cincinnati Bengals, Super Bowl runner-up. They are on the clock at 31. Top needs, offensive tackle, offensive guard. Yes, they need to bolster that offensive line. The amount of times that Joe Burrow got sacked in the playoff run is by far the most disgusting thing I've seen in the past couple years. It's one of the top 5. It's absolutely horrendous. And to think that they would have won that Super Bowl had only the offensive line held up and been able to protect for 60 minutes. They protected for 30. But if you're going to protect for 30, do it on the second 30, not the first 30. They did it for the first 30. And then the second 30, I don't know if they were gassed. I'm sure Raheem Morris, defensive coordinator for the Rams, and Aaron Donald, he got spicy. You know, that little play where he pushed Burrow out of bounds and it almost started a fight. I think that kind of charged his battery pack up a little bit. So in that second half, you know, they turned it on. So kudos for the defensive adjustment and for those guys turning on the switch. But in that big of a game as an offensive line, you cannot fumble the bag like that. And if you're going to do it again, struggle in the first half, figure out a way to fix it in the second half. But if that offensive line could have protected Joe Burrow a little bit better, I think we'd be talking about the Bengals having pick 32 instead of pick 31. Is there an offensive lineman that they can take right here? Just looking at the big board, the way it's falling out, I don't think so. There's Daniel Falele here from Minnesota. He did struggle at the Senior Bowl week. He wasn't able to get into his pass sets quick enough. He got bullied by power rushers. He looked slow against speed rushers. So I don't know if it was the pressure of the week. I don't know if he was dealing with a nagging injury. We're going to have to see him at the Pro Bowl. I mean, not the Pro Bowl, at the Combine, and see him at his pro day in order to see if he's able to, work on some things and make some adjustments. But I think he kind of hurt his stock a little bit during that Senior Bowl week. So can we justify taking him at 31? Maybe not. This would probably be, in future iterations of this round 1 mock draft, this may be a prime candidate for the Bengals to trade out. Maybe they trade back a couple of spots and maybe then they take a flyer on Daniel Falele in the second round. But I don't think they can, take him here in the first round. I do think they bolster that defense. The secondary is pretty solid. The front four is pretty solid. I think you need a little bit of help in the linebacker area. So for that, I drafted Christian Harris, linebacker out of Alabama, for the Bengals. And the final pick of this draft, number 32, is the Detroit Lions. This would have been the Rams pick, but the Rams traded this pick to the Lions in order to acquire Matthew Stafford, and it worked out as they intended it to. So now the Lions are on the clock. Safeties in need, quarterbacks in need, wide receiver, linebacker, wide receivers. Chris Olave is still here. This may be a really, really solid pick. Also, Jahan Dotson. They did a great job in selecting Amon-Ra St. Brown, and he stepped up towards the end of the year to be a big component of this offense. But I do think they need to provide him a little bit more help from the wide receiver position. Give Jared Goff or whoever the quarterback is going to be some more weapons. Safety is also an option here. I love a guy like Jalen Petrie. He's been flying up draft boards recently, so it's possible that he can sneak into that back end of the first round with what he's been able to put on film. At Baylor, at the Senior Bowl, and then we'll have to see what he's able to do at the Combine and his Pro Day. So Jalen Petrie could definitely be an option here. But I think they want to get some more weapons on that offensive side of the ball. And I think we go with Chris Olave, wide receiver from Ohio State, to the Detroit Lions. And that's going to do it. That's going to wrap up 1.0 of our round one mock draft for the 2022 NFL offseason. Let's just recap our picks real quick. Jaguars take Evan Neal out of Alabama, offensive tackle. Detroit Lions take edge rusher Kayvon Thibodeau out of Oregon. Houston takes edge rusher Aiden Hutchinson out of Michigan. The Jets take safety Kyle Hamilton out of Notre Dame. And the Giants take Ikem Ekwonu, offensive tackle out of North Carolina State. 6-10, Carolina Panthers take offensive tackle Charles Cross. Giants take edge rusher George Karlaftis. The Falcons followed that up with edge rusher Jermaine Johnson. The Broncos followed that up with edge rusher David Ojabo. And then rounding out the top 10, the Jets take corner Derek Stingley Jr. out of LSU. You could very well see in drafts in previous years, there's always a trend on a run of certain positions. Once one guy goes, then other teams start taking guys because, the pickings are getting slim. So you could very much see a run on edge rushers like this, whether it be in the top 10 or top 15. At some point, you could see a run like that with this draft class. 11-15, Washington Commanders take Sauce Gardner out of Cincinnati, cornerback. Minnesota Vikings take defensive tackle DeMarvin Leal. Cleveland Browns take wide receiver Treylon Burks from Arkansas. Baltimore Ravens take the massive Jordan Davis out of Georgia. And the Philadelphia Eagles select Andrew Booth Jr., corner out of Clemson. Eagles back on the clock, 16-20. They take guard Kenyon Green out of Texas A&M. The Chargers take offensive tackle Trevor Penning out of Iowa. The New Orleans Saints select Kenny Pickett, quarterback out of Pittsburgh. Eagles finally get a linebacker in Devin Lloyd out of Utah. And the Pittsburgh Steelers shore up their offensive line with offensive guard Zion Johnson from Boston College. 21-25, Patriots take corner Trent McDuffie. Raiders take a center Tyler Linderbaum from Iowa. Cardinals take corner Roger McCree from Auburn. Dallas Cowboys select safety Jaquan Brisker from Penn State. And the Buffalo Bills select edge rusher Trayvon Walker from Georgia. And then 26-32, Tennessee Titans add linebacker Nakobe Dean. Buccaneers add wide receiver Garrett Wilson. Packers add wide receiver Jamison Williams from Alabama. Miami adds wide receiver Drake London from USC. Kansas City Chiefs take Daxton Hill, safety out of Michigan. Cincinnati Bengals take linebacker Christian Harris. And the Detroit Lions in the first round taking wide receiver Chris Olave from Ohio State. That's going to do it. That's going to wrap this one up. I appreciate your time and attention. Thank you so much for tuning in. If this is your first time here at Mose Knows, do me a favor. First, hit a thumbs up on the video. If you liked any part of this content, if you like mock drafts, you're going to love the series that we're doing. So just give me a thumbs up. Then take another 2 seconds and hit that subscribe button so that you get notified every time new content drops right here at Mose Knows. We're going to be doing multiple versions of our round one mock draft. Then at some point, we're going to jump into our team mock drafts. Last year, we did 32 separate mock drafts for every single team. So round 1 through 7, that specific team, what are they going to do to help build their 2022 roster? What new crop of young prospects are they going to bring into their team? We're going to go right back into that series as well. We also may be doing some player spotlights. So we're going to be looking at some of these draft prospects, taking a look at the film, looking at their strengths and weaknesses, and finding what best fit for them there is out there in the NFL. So you want to be notified when those videos go out. Love and appreciate all of your time. Thank you so much for tuning in to Mose Knows. I'm looking forward to our second full off season that we'll be able to do right here on this channel. It doesn't go off without you. So I love and appreciate you. And I'll catch you all in the next episode. Peace.